3 concepts for covers for the book that you edited, Laura. And I don't know if people in the group would be interested in giving feedback on those, because I look at them and I think I understand what's going on, but I don't have a frame of reference to know whether that's a marketable cover or not. So anyway, that's not really about writing. It's more about selling books. So it may not be appropriate to this group.
We can at least, group think it, but this is about language and about marketing. So this is, the genre that you're writing in. One of the biggest ways to do it is, and back in the day when there were bookstores, you went to the bookstore and you went to the section of the shelf where your genre sits, and you lay out all the covers. And by doing that, you start documenting, do they use flowy script? Do they use blocky script? Do they use serif scripts? Do they use sans serif scripts? What's the relative size between the author's name and the book title? And you start taking notations about what's the most common elements in the genre. When you get to the picture, it's, what is the typical quality of the picture? And by that, I mean, is it a landscape? Does it have a person in it? Is the person prominent, or is the person, a piece of the background? Suggested. Or is the person looking off into the distance? Very often those novels that are about finding yourself have the character, or a rendering of the character, sort of looking off into the distance, maybe even with their back to the camera, perspective wise, and that type of thing. And so what you do is you document what's common in your genre, and then decide if those same elements are present in your own title. I think that approach still works. That's an approach that has been worked on book publishing for 40 years.
Well, that's actually what the designer had me do, was to go and collect all kinds of images and all kinds of things. In fact, things that I hadn't thought of in writing, like what are the metaphors, what are the symbols, all those kinds of things. It was quite an experience to sort of look at the book again, like through yet another person's eyes. A lot of professionals have looked, and this one was saying, no, you look again. So yeah, it has been an interesting process for sure.
So, I mean, I don't think, I do think on some level, sort of the tried and true methods do work and continue to work. And so what I would do is I would look up your label tags and compare the top sellers in that genre with the ones with the concepts you've been given, and say,
okay,
this one has more of the elements incorporated in it. This one has less. And very similar to the conversation we've had about the editing itself. If you can have a conversation about why you think, even if something doesn't necessarily match exactly, but you feel like it brings out more of the metaphor, or it brings out more of the thing, then you could say, this element, I really still want it. This cover looks a lot like the others and definitely would fit on that shelf. But this makes it stand out and makes my book say, this is my story. And things like that. You'd be able to have that conversation with your cover designer, just from that familiarity. But I'm really glad to hear that your cover designer suggested you go out and find images and find things that attracted your eye to match the ideas in your story. That's a really good relationship indicator. And so I'm really happy for you for that.
Well, it was a process.
The cover if you go traditional.
What's the question?
If you go traditional publishing, how much say do you get?
Oh, no idea.
I went with a small press, and I had a lot of say. I'm very similar to Leslie. I pulled together a set. I was, pulled together a set of concepts and ideas. We'll turn that over to our cover artist, and and then match the book, the lines look, that sort of thing. But again, it was a small press. The big presses, as I understand it, um, you don't really have much of a say at all. They have done all of that science about what the genre takes, what the genre tolerates, what the stresses are on how original you can be and stuff like that. And they just, so they might say, give us a list of the most prominent scenes, or the scenes that you might want. But in fact, their editor probably did that. And so these are the scenes that the story turns on, and or here's the scene with the good description of the main character, so they can go through their stock photos and find that brunette, or what have you. That sort of thing. But so you don't really have a lot of say. But if you do, yeah, having that awareness of what the genre should have is important to just being able to come across as a professional yourself. And you may be a new author, but just like a job interview, it's how do you come across professionally? How knowledgeable are you of the industry that you're attempting to enter?